Breaking news here in Batshit Bonkers Britain, where I am channeling The Apprentice harder than Lord Sugar bent over a market store. First up, a remarkable young man, George Finch, 19 years old, leader of Warwickshire County Council, has been standing up and demanding that we be told both the nationality and the immigration status of two monsters charged with an alleged rape in Nuneaton. Well done to George Finch for having more of a spine than most of the politicians out there. I absolutely salute you. In other news, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, says as many as 2 illegals might get returned to France in exchange for 15 million quid that we're currently paying them. I know, 2 Mohammeds sent back over. Of course, the inflatables are actually a massive distraction. You want to see the real invasion of this country, then take a late night ferry loaded with truckers from France to the UK. The truck overnight stops are all controlled by the mafia. The trucks are loaded by the mafia, and the truck drivers are paid to face forwards and ask no questions. And finally, Farage has forgotten what a cock is. He thinks that an ugly bloke called Angela maybe needs to be assessed in case he can go to a female prison. You'd think he'd know what a dick is, wouldn't you? After all, he's got one heading up the Doge unit, and when he sees his own reflection in the mirror in the morning, you'd think he'd see the one on his forehead. That's it, my darlings. Batshit Bonkers Britain. Breaking news here in Batshit Bonkers Britain, where old ceramic bobhead Hair by Lego Rachel Reeves finds herself in a spot of bother. £50 billion worth of spot of bother. That's money that she needs to find from somewhere. She says she's going to keep her fiscal rules. She says she's going to keep her spending commitments, and she promised not to raise taxes on working people. At this point, we're going to have to start paying to show up for work because we simply can't be taxed anymore. This is what happens when you appoint as Chancellor someone who is not qualified to work a self-checkout till at Asda. In other news, we find out that Zara has been banned with some of its ads. The Advertising Standards Authority have said that some of its models look too slim. I mean, it's absolutely fine if you want to be a morbidly obese chumbawamba and have bits of you tumbling out, your massive gunt hanging out over your lycra when your sportswear is screaming out for mercy. And it's fine if you want to be a really, really anorexic bloke pretending to be a woman, but it's not okay to just be a slim and pretty young girl anymore. I've had a look at the committee of the Advertising Standards Authority, and as you would imagine, there's some fat Brendas there. I say to you, ladies, jealousy will get you nowhere. And finally, a tragic story. A climate journalist called Alex Lund has gone missing in Norway. He set out to document the disappearance of glaciers in Norway, and unfortunately it looks like he might have got stuck in glacial ice that he said wasn't there due to climate change. Anyway, we wish his family all the very best. That's it. Batshit Bonkers Britain. Breaking news here in Batshit Bonkers Britain, where I'm leaning nonchalantly on a bench. First up, Labour in more trouble, this time the Housing Minister, a lady by the name of, one moment, Rashanar Ali. She's had to resign because she kicked her tenants out of their flat in order that she could put the price up by £700 a month, an increase of 20%. This is a practice that is supposed to be banned by the Labour government, specifically the Housing Minister. So now Labour have lost their anti-corruption minister because she was allegedly corrupt. They've lost their Housing Minister because she was making people homeless. What's next? Maybe the Justice Secretary, a lady by the name of Shabana Mahmood, will get caught nicking cheese down at Asda. Who can possibly say? In other news, Rachel Reeves' ceramic bobhead Hair by Lego has taken her hard hat off that she usually wears when she's showing that she's building a better Britain, and she's put on a headscarf to meet her Pakistani constituents. Isn't that charming? She turned up looking like she was going to an arranged marriage in Bangalore. One wonders if it could get any worse for Rachel Reeves, and then one remembers she's just managed to create a 50 billion black black hole in the British economy, which taxpayers are now going to be asked to fill. And finally, a lady who identifies as a comedian by the name of Kate Smurthwaite is complaining because in Edinburgh Fringe, nobody showed up to any of her shows. She identifies as a left-wing feminist, atheist, polyamorous activist. I mean, probably she's gluten-free as well. One of the things I'd say to you, Kate, is it's a little bit selfish to imagine that Oasis should schedule their tour dates around you, my darling. But I will say this, because I'm a kind, decent and very funny woman. If you want to see what it's like to see a sold-out show, or maybe a crowd of 1,500 people, then I will invite you to my shows. Just go ahead and purchase a ticket. I mean, you'll have to join a wait list at katiesarms.com. So katiesarms.com, join the wait list and you'll see what it's like to be fully sold out and actually rather funny. That's it, my darlings. Batshit Bonkers Britain. Breaking news here in Batshit Bonkers Britain, where there is another heat wave. Temperatures are supposed to soar above, better not do that hand gesture, temperatures are supposed to soar above 30 degrees. I mean, how will British people even cope? In a related story, the climate journalist who went to Norway to document the fact that due to climate change, there's no more glaciers, he went missing, but he's been found alive, but with a broken leg, because he slipped on some ice that wasn't supposed to be there. In other news, Lucy Connolly has now done 299 days behind bars for the crime of a single tweet that was written in a moment of madness that she deleted 4 hours later. JD Vance is absolutely right when he says we don't have freedom of speech. I'd argue that we haven't had it for at least 15 years. In related news to that, something we're not allowed to talk about is the trial of Ricky Jones. Because if you're someone like me from the far right, that would be seen as contempt of court and I will end up in prison. And finally, the ginger dwarf from the north, Nicola Sturgeon, decides that she's going to move to London in order that she can practice being a lesbian, because she suddenly feels that she might be a lesbian after all. Isn't that convenient? While she was in politics and trying to climb the greasy pole, she was straight, but now she's a champion for lesbians everywhere. Watch out, London, because she's headed your way and she plans to lick more labias than Claire Balding. That's it, my darlings. Batshit Bonkers Britain. Breaking news here in Batshit Bonkers Britain, where the police have announced they have a new fleet of facial recognition vans so that they will be able to increase the surveillance of the state. This will be specifically targeted at easy to police white people doing naughty things like, putting up a tweet in anger, or maybe, holding a sign, but will largely disregard illegals doing stuff like, targeting young kids or maybe breaking into people's homes uninvited. In other news, Keir Starmer invites Zelensky over for chats whilst the adults, Putin and Trump, have actual conversations elsewhere. No news yet on whether the 3 Ukrainian bum boys are also being invited to this little cosy gathering. And finally, A-level results day for students everywhere. Auntie Katie politely asked you to think about not going to university. I know you will say that, what am I going to do? And that is the right question. But the answer is very seldom a festering turd of a university that's going to teach you what you're allowed to think. You know, they call them scholarships, but actually these are bribes. They're trying to bribe you to go because the market is oversupplied. There is too little demand, and students and young people are brilliantly realising for themselves there is actually not much value at all in getting loaded with debt for a degree that doesn't actually get you a job. That's it, my darlings. Batshit Bonkers Britain.